Hi everyone, my name is Vanessa Darkoa and my partner's name is Enze Song. This is our student guest lecture presentation. And for this presentation, we decided to focus on social learning during the global pandemic. And I will be mostly narrating this PowerPoint. No, fine. So importance. For perfect education experience, social learning is a very important link. Learning is a process that requires constant discussion and sharing of ideas. It's really imperative that students discuss with other students through social learning so that they can get new ideas, collaborate, and learn from one another. Additionally, social learning exercises students' social skills and improves their participation in class. And this is our incorporation of a multimedia image. So how does social learning work with technology? So with the sudden arrival of the epidemic, many face-to-face courses had to be moved online for safety precautions. And so students and teachers have also had to gradually adapt to the way that we learn. And most of us have had to switch to using technology such as Zoom and WebEx. So when it comes to social learning during a pandemic, there's different kinds. We have synchronous learning and asynchronous learning. And with synchronous learning, students can discuss with each other in a group in the online classroom environment, like as though it's the closest we have to an actual in-person experience. So even though it's virtual and online, students still gather at a specific time so that they can collaborate and learn with one another, and the instructor still facilitates the entire classroom experience. And synchronous learning, synchronous classes can be a positive conversation starter and can guide children to brainstorm and correct mistakes in time. On the contrary, we also have asynchronous learning, and with this learning style, basically students are still learning and collaborating with one another, but at their own pace and at different time periods. So students can discuss and exchange their ideas through discussion forums. Students can ask questions and talk to professors through email. And this format is really good for even shy students or introverted students because they can feel comfortable participating through the asynchronous discussions. So now we're going to dive into online social learning and the pros and cons that comes with it. So the pros are that students and teachers can listen and teach at home, and this saves a lot of time when it comes to going to school. In the online environment and with the support of technology, students can, consult materials and complete assignments more efficiently. And the cons is that without the face-to-face communication and discussions, some problems may not be solved on the spot, and it may be harder for students to really grasp content that they otherwise might have grasped more easily if they were in person or if they had an instructor directly next to them. So how can we enhance the benefits of social learning? And this portion is mostly the one that I focused on. The previous portion was mostly written by Enze. So technology plays a big role in social learning because it's a tool that can allow meaningful interaction to take place. The instructor or the teacher presence, for lack of a better word, facilitates social learning through feedback and positive reinforcement. When we look at some of our readings, for instance, the Community of Inquiry Framework lecture pointed out that teaching presence entails the design, facilitation, and direction of cognitive and social processes. And within the classroom setting, the instructor's remarks, comments, and behavior heavily impact how students regard one another. And so when we talk about social learning, while it is important that we focus on students, we also have to acknowledge how much of an impact the teaching presence or the professor or the instructor's presence really affects how students learn. And so this is a continuation of the previous slide. Referencing more of our readings, in the core framework, social presence is described as The ability of participants to identify with the community, communicate purposefully in a trusting environment, and develop interpersonal relationships by way of projecting their individual personalities. And this really connects to the whole social aspect that we've been focusing on throughout this lecture. Social learning equips students with the liberty to interact with their peers effectively while still learning in a way that is in accordance with 21st century skills. And now I want to focus on collaboration through social learning. As we have learned throughout the semester and even in this lecture, collaboration is a very important aspect of education. And so through the use of technology, students can share ideas with each other and collaborate effectively without having to see one another physically. And we're talking about the online format, whether synchronous or asynchronous. And social learning equips students with the liberty to interact with peers effectively while still learning. And now I want to talk about the incorporation of Mayer's 12 principles of multimedia. So throughout the entirety of this presentation, we included Enze really tried to incorporate aspects of Mayer's 12 principles of multimedia into our very own presentation. And although we took all aspects of the principle into consideration, we mainly focused on, I'd say, three aspects of three principles. And those are the spatial contiguity, coherence principle, and temporal continuity principle. So the spatial contiguity principle, we incorporated that into our lecture by placing words and pictures on the screen near to one another instead of far away, because we understand that spatial dynamics really play an important role in how an audience, or in this case, students, are better able to grasp and understand the content that's being presented. We incorporated the coherence principle by excluding irrelevant words and images. So we tried to keep our presentation not as clear and concise as possible so that students or whoever's watching can really grasp it and not have to strive or strain themselves to understand what's being presented. And then we also focused on the temporal continuity principle by presenting our slides simultaneously rather than successively. And we can say that by adhering to the aforementioned principles, we're able to create a presentation that is more likely to stick in the minds of our prospective audience. And we also included a multimedia component, mostly pictures, on each of our slides, just so it's not just words and a background. And as you can hear me right now, we also included audio, just so that students can better grasp what's being presented in our lecture. Okay, well, that is it for our presentation. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen, and we really, really hope that you learned something. Have a wonderful day.